Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
And welcome to a special episode of Tales from the Fandom, as we are gathered here today to discuss a wonderful TV show that lasted an impressive 5 years on one of the alphabet networks that is not ABC, CBS, NBC, or Fox. So if you can figure out those letters, welcome to the club. We are talking about Leverage, and I am joined by Jachelle Overstreet and Chelsea Doyle, who are wonderful fans of Leverage and are the ones who got me into the show in the first place. So welcome both of you back to the podcast.
Yay!
Thanks, David. Hi.
Hello. We used to do a podcast, a Leverage podcast.
What? No way.
Yeah.
I totally did.
Long ago. It was called the Long Con podcast, and it was the three of us.
Which is a mouthful when you're trying to say it quickly.
It's so hard. I'm out of practice now. But yes, that was my first ever podcasting, and it was ridiculous when we look back on it. Like, you have a whole system now, but we used to have to like sync the sound and then edit the thing using, what would we use? Audacity?
Yeah, we used Audacity, and we would like all record separately, and then we had to all send them to one person who could sync them, and then
it was
so
bad. This was years back, so we did our best.
That is still something that people in the podcast world do today, and people do claps and stuff like that, and to line up the talking parts and everything else. But thank goodness what we're recording on today kind of helps with that, so I don't pull out what little of my hair I have left stays on my head instead of being pulled out from.
Yeah, that was definitely bad.
I think there were a couple times when we actually had to re-record episodes because we couldn't get the audio to sync up, or like someone lost their audio, and so we only had 2/3, and it was
not. So we just did it again, and
it
was good times though. I mean, I wouldn't have changed it, but it was kind of hard to do it that way. That would have been nice to have something like this back then.
Oh, absolutely. Now, as I said, Leverage is a TV show that started on TNT. On December 7th, 2008. So when this episode releases, it'll be officially 10 years. How did you both discover the show? Because, you know, TNT is not known for, let's say, high quality entertainment at times.
I think I know exactly what Jachelle's going to say, and I think I agree with her. Tell me.
So it first came on my radar because of two people. Christian Kane.
And Gina Bellman.
And Gina Bellman, yeah. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Buffy and Angel, and Christian Kane had a role on Angel. Mm-hmm. And then Gina Bellman is in one of my very, very, very favorite shows, British sitcom called Coupling. And so I was like, hey, these two actors that I really love are in this show, so let me check it out. And so it was in like the beginning of the second season, and I just caught an episode on TV, and I was like, actually, this is really good. And so I went back and watched it from the beginning and just completely fell in love with it.
Yeah, that's exactly the same here, which is why that I knew that her answer was going to cover it. I love Christian Kane from Angel, and I love Gina Bellman from Coupling. And so I was like, oh, I know those two names. I don't really know anyone else. I didn't even really know Timothy Hutton that well.
Neither did I. Like, I knew of him, but I don't think I'd really seen anything with him in it.
And then, I mean, he's amazing. And he was just in The Haunting of Hill House, which, like, it was so weird.
He did such a good job in that show, though. Like, he
was so good. He was, I mean, he's always good. He's a very talented actor. But it was really exciting to see Christian and Gina, who we already liked, like, get such substantial roles and really, like, dig into those characters because they did an amazing job with them. So that's also how I got involved with them,
That's one of the interesting things that always comes up, because I know I used to do it a long time too, is all the actors from like Buffy and Angel or anything that Joss Whedon did, I'd try to follow their movies or TV shows and keep up with them. And some of them were really good and some of them were really, really bad. or canceled within the first couple episodes, and then you're like, oh well, okay.
No. Or within a few seasons, like the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh yeah,
I love that show.
it was so good.
It was really good. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on what they're in. Also, like, they kind of tend to stay within like fantasy sci-fi realms, a lot of them, and those shows are like a hit or a miss with audiences. Not that I love every one of them, but there are definitely audiences that are harder to grab if you're science fiction, and a lot of them, that's what they ended up doing. So this was a non science fiction, which was great.
Yes, yeah, and totally, like, a totally different character than you're used to, at least for as far as Christian Kane's character goes.
Oh, let me tell you how different Gina is. Jachelle. Like, oh my goodness. So on Coupling, Gina Bellman is this character called Jane, who is like mentally unstable, and she's like coming up with all of these fake personalities, and she says the most outrageous, weird things, but she's constantly the comedy relief. So she's not a character. She had no real character. And then she comes to Leverage, and she has every character known to man.
And there's one episode in season 1. It's is it The Wedding Job, where she goes like full Jane. Nate has like upset her, and she just has this moment where she just goes off and she just starts like spewing all this stuff and talking really fast, and we're just like, that is Jane right there.
Yeah.
So if you guys know what scene we're talking about and you enjoyed that, definitely check out Coupling. Well, you should check out Coupling anyway, because it's hilarious.
I mean, it's so funny. But yeah, when she goes off the rails is when she's the closest to Jane.
To Jane, yes.
So I just couldn't imagine her playing an actual character. And of course, she's amazing. So it was good to see her as an actual character.
Well, for those who are listening to this episode and don't know what Leverage is, it was a TV show that followed a 5-person team that included a thief, a grifter, a hacker, and a retrieval specialist led by Nathan Ford, who is a former insurance investigator who used their skills to fight corporate and governmental injustices inflicted on ordinary citizens. Now, if that doesn't grab you, I don't know what will, but it is so much better in the actual TV show rather than that Wikipedia summary right there.
Oh, it's so brilliant. I mean, obviously we're all fans, so we can say good things, but it actually is very smart and funny. And I don't know what I expected. I don't think I expected anything when it started. I was just like, I don't know what this, and I love Robin Hood.
Exactly. It's like, let's just check out this thing. And Chelsea and I are both big fans of Robin Hood, so I think we were both sort of drawn to the premise of the show with these thieves using their abilities to help people that can't help themselves.
Yeah, and then finding how to become a team, which is a big part of season 1, them even learning how to work together before they become a family like they are in the future.
Oh, yeah. So. Yeah, because the whole setup of the show is that prior to this, they all worked alone. They never worked with people. And then Nate brought them all together and made them a team, which, then made them a family, which we love.
Yes, of course. And Nate actually, that's not part of that, but Nate was on the other side. He was an insurance guy who would hunt down all of the thieves. So that's how he knew all of them, was that he used to hunt them. And then he turns around to the other side because his insurance group allows his son to die. I mean, not allows, his son is already dying, but they do not cover the specialized treatment that might have saved his life. So he gets rock bottom, and he gets pulled into this idea of this team trying to get back at the insurance group. And then eventually he's the one that says, let's help people. If we're going to do this, we're going to help people. And I think that Sophie is like, well, bad people have money. We like money.
Yes.
And that's where it starts. But it is a very interesting twist right from the get-go that they all know Nate. Like, he's he's technically the enemy, and suddenly he's not. And it's a great show. I'm just saying.
I remember because you both had told me to watch it for multiple reasons, and I always take your recommendations on TV shows and books and whatever else highly. And I remember watching that first episode, and by the end of the first episode, I was hooked.
Oh, it's an amazing.
It's just that one episode encapsulates everything you're going to see moving forward.
It's a really strong pilot. Like, that is one of the strongest pilots I've seen for any show I've watched.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm constantly, to this day, recommending it to people whenever someone's like, I need a new TV show to watch. What should I watch? I'm always like, Leverage. Watch it.
Leverage.
It's harder now that it's not streaming on Netflix anymore. It used to be just like, go watch it on Netflix. Like, watch the first episode and you'll see. But so it's harder now. But I'm like, I have the DVDs. I'll let you borrow them. Please watch this show.
Please watch the show.
Please. I want more people to talk about it with.
Well, and it's interesting too, because a lot of shows you have to actually tell them, like, give it a few episodes before it gets good. Like Parks and Rec, the first season, throw it out the door. And like, I even with The Good Place, I'm like, no, you just gotta give it a little time. But this one, like, no, the first episode is amazing. Like, go
right
watch
out of the gate, it was so good.
It was really good. And I mean, I think that's a credit to the writers who are always good. And like, they keep the same kind of quality people that are always kind of in charge and keeping it on task. And I think that's why it's sustained itself for so long. I mean, 5 years isn't that long, but 5 years of great quality is long.
I agree.
Oh, definitely. And one of the things that I found interesting just scrolling through like the episode list today was that they didn't change directors a lot. Like, it was a lot of the same directors repeatedly on every season, including Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I do think it's because of that they managed to maintain that, because they maintain the quality, because they all had a very clear idea of where they wanted the show to go and how they envisioned the show. And that's why I think that it never really changed. It went in a great direction, but you could just tell from the get-go that this was a team that liked each other, that had the same goals in mind. And, you know, that just bleeds really well into the rest of the show.
Now, I always ask with every time I do one of these anniversary episodes or review episodes, who do you have as your favorite character? If you can pick one, and I understand if you can't.
I know who Chelsea's going to pick. So
I know who you're going to pick. We know this about it's so bad how well we know each other.
And people wonder why I pick certain people for anniversary episodes.
So my favorite character is Sophie Devereaux, which is Gina Bellman's character. And I like I said, I was shocked because her character is so great, but it's beyond the fact that Gina can do any accent. She could do any character and make them incredibly believable, because that is a hard role. She has to like sell every single comedy.
Yeah,
she's the grifter.
Like a different character every single episode.
Sometimes multiple in one episode. And it's hard because, you know, we have to believe that she's capable. We have to believe that she is so believable that other people would buy into this. And she just does it so well. And I loved Sophie's whole thing. She can't act in like real life. And it's amazing. She's like so self-unaware. It's amazing. And I just really, she's such the heart of the group. She has such a kindness and an open-heartedness to her that like everyone knows that Sophie is the one that they can lean on and the one that they can talk to about anything. And she plays that kind of mother-hen role really well. And in a lot of ways, she has to like balance out Nate's crazy, which is why they become like the mom and dad of the group. And like, if your dad was the unstable alcoholic father, but she is just, I think that she's really strong. She never took any crap from people. She she's funny, but she's not like intentionally so the way the other people are. And I love Sophie. I love everything she does. And I was really sad when she was gone for a few episodes.
Oh yeah, that was so rough. I remember particularly when we all were like first watching the show and she appeared, we loathed Jerry Ryan's character so much just out of pure spite, because she's not Sophie.
She's not Sophie.
And you know, we didn't know if she was going to be coming back, so we just like laid all this hate on Jerry Ryan's character, who like going back and rewatching it is a great character. And we, you know, I love her now, but like at the time we just hated her because she wasn't Sophie, and we were so upset that Sophie was gone.
Yeah, because Gina had a baby, and they hadn't told us whether or not she was coming back. Partly because they wanted it to be a surprise when she did come back, showed up later on in the season. But up until that point, we were like, "Where is she? Is she coming back? Are they readying her out?" And so yeah,
we were
there
all
was
very upset.
cruel hatred irrationally of this character, who, upon reflection, is a great character.
It's a great character.
I know. So I feel bad about that, but yeah.
We were young. We didn't know.
Yeah, we were just angry. We didn't want to lose our favorite toys. Okay, go ahead, Jachelle. I know what you're going to say.
Okay. So my favorite character is Elliot Spencer. Shocking, I know. So it started, I'm not even going to lie, because I have a massive crush on Christian Kane.
Yeah.
I think he is the most attractive man.
She makes me listen to his music.
I do, and he sings country music, which she hates. So it's
true.
No. But it grew from there. Like he's such an interesting character to me, because he's like this, real tough, doesn't talk a lot, real loner solo kind of guy, real alpha male type. But then they give him like these qualities that circumvent that. Like he loves cooking, and he's really amazing at it, and he's really good with kids, and like he becomes like this big brother protector of the whole team, which always meant a lot to me. And I think he's the most awesome character. I completely love him.
Yeah, I agree. He's great. He had a really good journey too.
Yeah,
in that show. So. It was quieter than the others, but it was there for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, at the start of the show, he had so many walls built up because of his past and everything that he'd gone through, and he was just like, "I'm not going to let anyone in. Like, none of this matters. I'm just going to do my job. I'm going to get paid. I'm going to go home, and that's it." And you can, when you watch, you can see the team like slowly creeping their way in there. And there's this scene, I want to say it's in season 5, when we find out a little bit more about Elliot's backstory and why he doesn't like guns and things like that. And Parker asks him, she's like, what happened? And he looks at her and he's like, please don't ask me. He's like, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you, and I don't want you to see that part of me. And it's like the fact that he's willing to be that vulnerable and open at the end of the series, like his arc is awesome.
Yeah.
I keep saying that, but like like you said, his growth is really quiet, and you don't see it as much unless you're really looking for it, but it's really beautiful the way it was done.
It is, and he's the character that has the darkest background. I mean, it's not out in the front like a lot of theirs is, and there's a lot of shadows in his. I think that's why we see less of his background than most, because he has so much darkness in it. But it's why him coming to the light and becoming that kind of like strong fixture, the one that we might be the emotional center, but I feel like he's like the physical center.
Yeah, he's kind of like if she's the heart, he's like the backbone of everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Great way of putting it.
Definitely. And I think I connected especially with Elliot during the wedding job episode in season 1, where it's like he's the basically taking over as the cook for this mafia wedding, and you're like, what? Where did this come from?
Yeah, it was such a fun surprise too. And not only that, like, hey, this, he's really good at cooking, but like you can see his real like passion and excitement for it.
Yeah.
And prior to that, we hadn't seen him emote very much. He was very stoic. And it's like now we see him getting excited about cooking and explaining all this different stuff and, making jokes. And I was like, oh my God, this is a whole new person that we're seeing right now.
I love the running theme of the cooking, especially when they buy the pub. And it wasn't Hardison that made that ridiculous menu, and he was like, I can't make this. And it's interesting because it makes sense too for him being the backbone. That he's like, he wants to provide that for his family, but he can't really give them feelings, but he can give them food.
Yes, exactly.
Feelings through food.
Feelings through food.
That's how he expresses himself.
I'll have to say that my favorite was always Alec Hardison, because I just get the whole tech side of things, and I'll reference pop culture stuff, and people will just be like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, how do you not know this? Like, this is normal for me, but then it's like, oh no, it's totally a reference that they won't get at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, Hardison is without a doubt the funniest person on the show. He is the laugh out loud character. He also grows up so much, though. It's crazy to think about how young he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I don't know, when I was watching it, I don't think I really thought to myself, like, he's supposed to be like 21 in that show.
Yeah, he was a baby.
He's so young. And I don't think I thought about it at all when I was watching it. And, like, on reflection, like, oh my, he was so young. Mm-hmm. And obviously he grew up quite a bit, and he'd had to. Him and Parker are the ones that had to grow up the most. So they had the strongest long-term arcs. And, you know, Nate to not be himself. I say that with so much love and affection. I love you, Nate. We love you, Nate. We love you, Tim. But yeah. We don't get to talk about Parker. Parker is an amazing character. What she went through. I would say of all of them, she grew the most, but she also had the most ground she had to carry, because she was very closed off and very erratic and very she didn't understand people or feelings or anything, and so like she always kind of was distant in a way that even the ones that were distant were not as distant as Parker. Like she was so far from everyone else, and she just came and she like started to want it and then work for it, and it was just never easy for her. But I mean, she ends up the new mastermind. How wild is that?
She had an incredible growth arc, and some of the most emotional moments in the show. Generally, if there was ever a scene that made me cry, it was because Parker was like emotional.
Yeah, it's true. She is so good. And I remember the episode where we realized that it's her that Nate is setting up for his replacement and not Hardison. Because that's a whole thing that Hardison has, where he wants to be Nate, but he realizes he can't be Nate because he can't make the hard choices. But like then you realize that Nate has actually been doing this to Parker for a while and building her up. And what she needed was more the emotional end, as opposed to, and it was, I don't know, I just really loved her growth, and I would want her to work for us.
Yes.
Be our mastermind.
I remember with Parker, one of the scenes that still sticks with me today is when they find, I don't know if it's her safe house or just where she had been holing up, and it's just like a single cot in a warehouse, with just plans of a building, and that's it. And it's like that's all there is at that point. You're like, dang, like Parker, I need
honey,
please come have like a plant or a window or something.
Yes, come talk to people and have a relationship, which she of course does have one, and it took years to get there, and it was beautiful and wonderful.
And the thing that I love too about her arc is that you know, the characters never pushed her. They're never like, I mean, there are certain jokes where they're like, it's Parker, like, you know, but you know, they never made her feel less for being different, and I think that's why she was able to come around as much as she was in the end, because a lot of people in society would make her feel ostracized for being the way she was. So now she's here with this group of people who make her feel safe, and like she knows she can be herself around, and they'll still accept her, and so that really allows her to grow and blossom into the person that she becomes in the end of the series.
It's true. And I was just thinking when you said that, I'm like, what was she wearing? She's wearing a nun's outfit. And they were talking about something, and then she goes, why do you think she was dressed like that? And Elliot just goes, it's Parker.
He just like shrugs his shoulders.
It could have been Parker. It could have been a job. It could have just been Parker. Oh man, that show is so good.
The dialogue in particular, I love it. There's so many like little lines, and just everything about it is so memorable. I could quote so many episodes just off the top of my head right now.
It's really laugh out loud funny. Met multiple times. When I got my friends to watch the first season with me, like they spent probably 75% of the episodes laughing out loud, like not just chuckling, like laughing. They're like, we did not expect this to be this funny. I'm like, I didn't either, but it's quite funny.
And I think a lot of that obviously is the writing, but I think a lot of that too is just the phenomenal casting job they did.
Yeah.
Every single one of those actors has superb comic timing.
It's true. And they let them They let them go a little bit and riff sometimes, especially Aldous as Hardison. They let him kind of do a lot of what he wanted.
Oh yeah, some of my favorite moments with Hardison are completely improvised.
Well, he just got the character, and there are just a lot of great moments. So he was probably the one that was riffing the most, but it's worth it because I mean that character is probably the one that makes it the easiest.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, still, and I think it's either the first or the second episode. One of my favorite moments is Nate has just helped Sophie put her earpiece in.
First episode.
It's like a really sweet kind of intimate moment. You can feel the tension between them, and then all of a sudden there's just all this like in a rolly chair rolling across the screen going ooh.
It's he's putting an earbud in her ear and she goes, "Now you're really in my head."
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then he ooh, that wasn't in the script.
Yeah. It's just stuff like that that's like so perfect for the character, and it was just completely on the fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved all of their relationships, especially as you both mentioned earlier, like the found family with Nate and Sophie as like the mother and father figures, and then you have like these trio of kids of Parker and Hardison and Elliot, and you're just like Elliot's the big brother, and then you got these two younger siblings with Hardison and Parker, and like sometimes they just don't knock it off.
And yeah, exactly. Which is why it's like so perfect that the show ended with the three of them taking over. Because it was like they graduated. They grew up.
They did.
They're now the adults.
They're adults now.
And of course they're all actual adults beforehand. But like they're able to really take everything on themselves. So it becomes the three of them in charge of the company because Nate and Sophie quote retire. Who knows how long that lasted. But it's great because they spent those 5 years like establishing that family. So when two of them go away, and that, oh my God, that moment where they're like explaining that they're going to go, and it's Parker who's like, I think I'm okay with it. They're just like, oh, my heart.
It's like
because they're ready. They're ready.
The whole finale is just like one big gut punch to me, but it was so beautifully done, and I like. To this day, like I'm still sad that we only got 5 seasons and that it was canceled at that point. But also at the same time, I can't complain too much because, like you said, they were such consistently good episodes for those 5 seasons. And it could not have had a more perfect ending to the whole series.
It is. I mean, we're skipping forward a few questions of yours, David, but
that's okay.
The end works incredibly well. Like it's like this is an amazing finale, amazing pilot, amazing in between. And when you watch it, you're like, yeah, okay, they shouldn't have continued. This was it. Like this was the perfect way to go out.
Yeah, as much as I love the show, there could not have been a better ending for that show. That they made the right call there.
Yeah, they said in my research that they knew that there's a possibility that they weren't going to be picked up again, so they made season 5 with that ending in mind of if it happens, this is the ending we want to go out on.
And it was perfect. I mean, I can't, and I didn't want to go longer. When I watched it, I was like, okay, this is it. Like, this is good. I'm solid on this one. Yeah. And I mean, I obviously would continue to watch it if they made it, but I didn't need that. And I don't need like a TV movie or I don't need another show. it was such a perfectly done, it's like reading a really good novel and then it's the end and you're like, okay.
It's done and it's solid and we didn't need it pulling like a Supernatural.
No one needs to pull a Supernatural.
I say that being someone who still watches Supernatural.
I just don't even know what to say to you.
Sometimes I wonder why I'm still watching it because I'm just like, I don't know. But
we're not talking about Supernatural. It's insane.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just saying that because we could be talking about it for a while.
True.
You have the 5 main characters, and they are all wonderful.
Of course.
But we're blessed with so many great, like, recurring characters in the 5 seasons that we get. Do you have any favorites that you enjoyed popping up?
Sterling!
Sterling. I was like, I knew that's going to be the first word out of Chelsea's mouth. Yeah.
The best. best. How can you get better than Sterling? Like
Yeah.
he just
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just saying. Every single time, and you with the voice, and you're like, but it's that moment where you can almost know he's gonna show up. Like he doesn't even have to talk. It's just
There's
like
just
this
that
tension,
pause, and you know
like,
when the
you're like,
camera pans over, he's
oh,
gonna be standing there.
He's gonna be there. It's just perfect. I mean, Mark Sheppard has one of the best voices ever. Like his voice is so distinct, but also this character is so perfect, and I love Sterling, and I love his relationship with all of them separately and together, and it's just amazing and beautiful. And I love every time Elliot like considers killing him. He's just like just a little bit.
He just thinks about it for a minute. Yeah. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. Continue.
Sterling's
whatever
awesome.
You guys were saying. Sterling is awesome. Yes.
He is
I
awesome.
know what I was gonna say. And the funny part is that he's the, air quotes, good guy of the show.
Yeah, it's true.
By all accounts, he's the guy that like is supposed to be the good guy, but obviously he's the villain, since the whole series is kind of flipped and the bad guys are the good guys. So this good guy is really the bad guy, and I love that. The way that whole thing was kind of turned on its head.
Well, he's the sheriff of Nottingham. Yeah, only much more likable. And he's quite likable, and that's why the more you want, he's clearly adversarial, but like you don't want anything to happen to him, and you want him to keep showing up. So every time that they continue and when he finally does that great stuff in the end too, and you're like, great, yay. Like you don't want them to stop having that tension, but you also want him kind of to be a part of the family too.
Yeah, exactly. And he kind of like worms his way in there every once in a while, which is always nice.
Because he actually likes them more than his company.
Than he'll ever admit. Yeah. Following Sterling, I would, and we briefly discussed her earlier, but Jerry Ryan's character Tara, who stepped in as the grifter while Sophie was off finding herself, I think was a really wonderful character too, and she complemented the team in a way that was completely original and didn't feel like she was just trying to be a replacement Sophie.
Yeah, and I mean, if we had known more clearly that this was temporary, we might have seen that, because what I like about her portrayal is that she had no intention of joining this family. Like she never did. She was very clear with her boundaries always. She never like went over the line to like maybe care too much. Like she didn't want anyone to get hurt, but like it was clear her boundaries were clear. She didn't plan on taking Sophie's place ever, and so she was just doing the job to help her out.
It was a job,
and I loved her. She was really, in retrospect, she was really great for that period of time too. I mean, she was really just keeping an eye on them, and you could see, looking back, like the subtle ways that they actually put that in, and how closely she was watching all of them and like nudging them without realizing it.
Oh yeah, it was all there, and that's another nod to the writers. They just have so many little things that they will hide in these episodes that going back and rewatching, you're like, oh, that like there's that foreshadowing there's this thing, and there's this character is acting this way because of this, and it's really clever and really smart. And I still feel bad that
we were so mean.
So much. We were terrible to her.
We were so mean. We were so angry at her always.
We didn't know what to do with ourselves without Sophie around. We were just lost in a drift and angry.
Well, so were they. So we were just like the rest of the team. And that Tara was a really good chaser for a time. Yeah. But I really love Maggie. I want to mention Maggie.
Oh yeah, Maggie.
I love Maggie, and you know what? We're gonna talk about favorite episodes. One of my favorite episodes is like all the people that they had helping them, and that was during the finale, right? It was right around the finale where all of their people came back to help them out, and Maggie was a part of that, and also she showed up a few times. I love the first introduction to her when she realizes that Elliot is there for Nate.
Yes. Oh, so good.
And she just makes so horrible. Oh, it's so good. But I just really loved her. I do feel like the only thing that I think that she deserved a little bit more of her own story with her son. because so much of it was around Nate's grief and the fact that, that Nate couldn't move on and he couldn't get past his guilt. And like, she did.
She did, yeah.
And she did. And that was healthy and that was good. But like, she only got a few moments where she could be like, hey, it was my kid who died too, bro. Like, it wasn't, you didn't make this child alone. Like, just because I didn't fall into pieces doesn't mean that it didn't matter to me. So I feel like the only thing that they could have done a little better, especially in regards to her, is letting her have more of that, or like having a moment with not Nate, somebody else, like talking about her grief or her relationship to her son would have been nice. I'm just gonna say.
I feel like that would have been a really amazing conversation for her to have with Sophie.
Yeah, exactly, because they had a really good back and forth, and I just think that she deserved that. A lot of her, I love Maggie, but a lot of her was just in regards to Nate, so she didn't really have as much on her own as she deserved. And they had a really great actress with Carrie Matchett, so she did a great with everything they gave her. Just feel like she deserved better a little bit. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Leverage. You did the best you could, but there are still criticisms.
So I don't know if this is really like a guest or a recurring character, because he was only in 2 episodes, but I just want to give like a special shout out to the actor who played Victor Dubenich from the pilot episode, and then he comes back later in the series.
Amazing.
And I remember when he showed back up again, I'm pretty sure my mouth actually dropped open. I was like, oh, what?
I know, it was so well done.
Yeah.
That was so. I really had forgotten, which is crazy because he was the very first.
Yeah, he was
character.
the first villain. Yeah.
And how could you have forgotten? But like when that happened, and the cool thing though is that even though I hadn't thought about him, the second he was on screen, I knew exactly who it was.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't like, wait, who is this guy? What is it? It's like, oh my God, it's Dubenich.
Well, and I think that's also a testament to the actor and how memorable he made this character. He played in 1 episode that like 3 seasons down the line, when he shows back up again with no warning, you're like, oh, it's that guy. He's back.
Oh my God, he's back for revenge. And you know, the end of him is kind of weird. Like the end of him and Jack was a little, Jack and Nate, and like they fall off the dam. That was weird. That was
that was a little weird.
That was a little weird, but
the rest
it
of
was so great.
I thought was excellent. And I love that we got the person coming back for revenge, because like every episode is them taking down these really rich, powerful people, and there's not a whole lot of fallout for that.
No, it's great because it reminds me of in comic books and things like that when like the villains get together when there's like the villain team up against, and it's like the villain team up against the hero team up, which is why one of my favorite episodes is the one where we have like Chaos and Quinn and all of the and of course Tara comes back to that too, as like the separate team, the team that he hired to be the evil team, the evil leverage team. And instead they work together, and I just love it so much. It was just so beautiful. What was the name of the guy who ran that team though? Why am I not thinking about
escaping me?
Because it's like when Chaos was introduced and he was part of that team, and then he tried to kill Sophie. And then he comes back later, and he's part of the evil leverage team that's now part of the team.
Yes.
But whoever the person was that ran that team was awesome, too. I just remember really liking him a lot. He was like the evil Nate. But they have so many good... It's funny because now I'm thinking about it, it has so many good references to, like, superhero tropes. You know, like the evil version of the teams. the team of villains that come back for revenge. And, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, and I think that was done on purpose, you know, with
I'm sure.
With all the references that are, you know, sprinkled throughout the show. The writers have got to be huge nerds.
Huge nerds. I mean, come on, Jonathan Frakes.
Jonathan Frakes, yeah.
Is one of their main people. And, you know, Dean Devlin certainly is.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I just love all of those. And it was just interesting also to have that all in a show that was like a weekly thing, because every week was a case, and they did still do that, but then they would throw things in like evil team and villains coming back, and also still have a con of the week, which was pretty cool. I just think that when I first started it, I didn't realize how complicated it would get, but in the best way. Like it ended up really great.
Yes.
Exactly. And I have to say that, we went through a lot of like the recurring characters that come through. I have to just give much love to the FBI special agents Taggart and
Oh
McSweeten,
my God, I just forgot about them for a second.
because
Yes.
Oh my
their
God.
relationship with Parker and Hardison as like their fake FBI
Yes.
Oh my God.
counterparts.
The best. The best.
And they just get promoted. They keep
They
getting
get
promoted because
promoted.
they're just there.
And I think it's like episode 3 or something when they
It's
like
the
really-
wedding job. Yeah, it was like episode 3.
Oh my God, it was so good. And then they just keep getting promoted because of the actions of the team.
Yes.
And like by
I'm
the
so
end,
glad you mentioned them.
they're so funny. Nick Sweden, and he has a
Yes,
crush
and-
on Parker.
On Parker, yeah.
Yep.
Who
Poor
wouldn't
guy.
though? Poor guy. Yeah, I just think you're right. Thanks for bringing that up because they're like the most classic, consistent guest stars.
Yes.
Every season they have to show up at least once or twice.
Exactly.
They're like the Doug Judy of Leverage.
Yes. That's a perfect comparison. Oh, Doug Judy. Do you have either of you? Do you have a favorite like episode or story arc or like I know that I said in the email that I sent over like base location because they change operating locations a few times. So do you have any favorites? Anything that you're like if you could point to the episode if someone new is jumping on maybe they can't see the first one like hey you should watch this one. This sums up Leverage completely.
Oh, that would be the Rashomon. I can never say it.
Rashomon.
The Rashomon
Yeah.
job for me. That is my favorite episode of the whole show, season 3. And
Yeah.
I love it so much.
I'm gonna agree with Chelsea. I think that's really encompasses a lot of the heart and the humor and the cleverness of the show. How everything is like pieced together in that episode.
It's beautiful. It's one of the most perfect episodes they've done. Everything worked. Everything fit.
Which is funny because it was in the middle of season 3, which is our least favorite season.
Yeah. Oh my God. Because of the Italian and Damien Moreau.
Yes.
Yeah, we as a little gang really hated the Italian and Damien Moreau as a storyline.
Not like them.
We did not like them as the bad guys. We thought they were really irritating. And since, they were the big bad of that season, it didn't work out really well. But that is an amazing episode. And also, I'm not a huge fan of Jimmy Ford, Nate's dad. And he was in that season, too. He was still alive at that point. Womp womp. And spoiler. Sorry, I kind of assumed this is all
this whole episode is just
yes, this is a whole big spoiler. Yes.
But yeah, it was kind of like all I remember from that season is this episode, which I loved, and then I remember that Jimmy Ford showed up, and then the Italian and Damien Moreau.
And I've mentioned it a couple times. Clearly, it's one of my favorites. But I think the wedding job is a really good like early on episode. Like if someone was just going to watch to try to get a feeling for the show, I would totally point them to the wedding job. I think that's
so funny.
It's really funny, and it's it's got the team all coming together. It's got that great stuff for Elliot with the cooking and
the Butcher of Kiev.
Yeah, the Butcher of Kiev. And there's that moment between Nate and Sophie when Nate's performing the wedding ceremony. I really love that episode, and also the 2-part finale of season 1.
First David,
the first and second David job.
So good. It's so good. And what I love about that is the fact that Sophie. So I love Sophie, but this was a great example of her, like, the whole season trying to, like, keep everyone together and, like, be like, let's be a team. But, like, she still has that part of her that is a thief and that is a liar and a conner. And of all of them, you would think that she would be the last one to con all of them.
Yeah.
And she does anyway because she wants those Davids. And that was really, and for them to separate then and then come together because they wanted to be together was really important because until that point that hadn't happened. But that was a great finale of the season too. Like that was probably their strongest outside of the finale, which was a very
outside of the finale. Yeah, which would be another. That's definitely another one of my favorite episodes.
So good.
Finale. Just not only because of like the good solid ending for everybody, but also I really love parallels, and there were so many parallels in the pilot that just made me so happy in my heart.
Do you remember when we were watching the finale and they pretended that half the team died?
Oh
you're
my
like,
God.
I know this is fake, and yet I'm still in pain.
Seriously, when I have rewatched the series since then, because I've done like a full series rewatch a couple times since it ended, and it still guts me. Like when they show those scenes of them dying, and I'm just like, I know this is fake, but I'm still crying.
Yeah, I can't do it. I don't even want to think about it. I can't even
handle the thought of it. Like even just pretending makes me so upset.
I know it was so well acted. I mean, they obviously knew that it was fake, and I still believed it, and it was so painful.
Just rip your heart right out of your chest.
I know, it was very cool of them, but it was amazing.
It was so good.
It was.
Also, I would just like to throw out there, as far as like base locations, I loved the whole season they spent in Portland.
Yes.
With the gastropub and like
I thought that was great.
All of the like weird quirky things that were going on in Portland. I loved everything about that whole.
What was the episode where Parker has a broken leg?
Yeah.
Deal with the waitress. That was a good one. Yeah, like that was a good location.
Yeah, and the waitress was another fabulous guest star for that episode.
Great.
She was awesome.
Great guest star.
But yeah, the whole Rear Window parallels with her broken leg and all the cameras and like spying on people was
great.
So much good stuff.
Yeah, that was their most like settled base, because the first one when they blew it up was pretty great.
Yes, that was a great moment.
The portrait of Nate will always be it will forever live.
We love old Nate.
Old Nate, amazing. I love the moment where you realize, because he's like, you're getting the painting, because he has all the money in it. Because they were like trying to get out of and Hardison's grabbing the painting.
Yes.
It's so good. I love when he gets he got Hardison a bat cave.
Yeah.
You got me a bat cave. But yeah, the Portland place was like their most consistent location, which made sense for what they were doing.
Yeah, and like you said, it felt like it was the most settled place. I think that was also because it was later in the show when they were all a family at that point.
They didn't need a new base every season anymore.
I will say, when they first did the place over the pub in, was it Boston?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there was that scene of like all the team members just coming into Nate's place, like making themselves at home. Hardison announced that he bought the building, and Elliot's knocking out walls. Like that was an amazing scene.
Yes, and because that's like season 2, because he still doesn't want to. That he doesn't want to agree to come back, and they're trying to convince him by just showing up.
Come on, Dad.
Dad, get involved, Dad. But I mean, we keep mocking Nate, but to be fair, he goes through the darkest stuff on this show. He has like a long arc of, I think, the frustration with Nate. I love him, but the frustration is that he is a grown man, and that it takes him that long to come back from it. And all respect to him. Tim is an amazing actor. What Nate went through is really difficult, but like a lot of what happened to him is his own, at least in the case of the show, it's like his own choices, and he can't like take responsibility for a lot of what he does in his life. And but we see him actually go from being an alcoholic and also like alcoholism as being a thief. What is it like? He realizes when I think it's season 2, when he allows them to take him to jail, and he's like, he finally says, I'm a thief, I'm a bad guy, and it's like him coming full circle. And then it just so happens that he gets sober after that, when he like finally comes to grips with the fact that this is who he is now. He also gets sober. So he has a long way to go, though.
He does.
So for the show that lasted 5 seasons, what worked the best? Was there something that didn't work that you're like, I mean, obviously there's definitely the season 3 storyline that did not work. And I remember Jachelle telling me, like, you're going to get to that season and it's not good. Like the Italian, not good. Just there's good parts, but
Yeah.
the storyline was not the best.
Yeah, so this is
No.
how I describe it. Like if it were any other TV show, it would be fine. But Leverage
Yeah.
had given us like a consistently high quality of episodes in the first 2 seasons, that even though season 3 was like perfectly fine by any other standard, it felt like a letdown because we were so used to like it being up here.
Well, and also that like they had built up. So season 2 ended with Nate going to jail and him accepting he's a thief and all that stuff. And then they like, not that I wanted him to be in jail for a while or anything. It's just like immediately he's out. Like, and they don't. It was you that kept yelling about the prison stuff.
It was, and I realized belatedly that I had a lot of misinformation.
But it's still, I mean, it still was definitely wrong.
Yes, I was like, no. This would not be happening in a prison. Like, what are you doing?
And not that it needed to be, but like, just, I don't know. They were just very lazy about it. When it was such a major storyline to end season 2 with, and then they're just like,
oh, we got to wrap this up. Get him out of here. So
get him out of there. We're going to introduce the Italian and Damian Moreau now. But no, it had some great, but season 3, I mean, the problem with having what you consider like a main villain over the course of the season is that if you don't like the villain, then it doesn't work. And that was the season that they leaned the hardest on that. Like, this is the bad guy. Because there's like 5 or 6 episodes where if it's not about Moreau, it like leans on it. Like he's part of it. Like they're doing other crimes that are like connected to him. Like there's an antique trafficker who worked for him, and there was the refugee children, and like it's not just enough that the episode was about the refugee children smuggler, but it had to also be about Damian Moreau.
Yeah, and there were all those like little moments where the Italian would show up and like blackmail Nate, and we're just like, oh, really?
And it definitely was the season that they did that the most in. Like, they had good ongoing villains, but they never tried to have to do, like, a whole season arc. And I think they learned very quickly that that was not what people wanted.
It didn't work quite as well as I think they were hoping it did.
Yeah, it was... I mean, I still liked it. That season has the inside job, which is Archie Parker is trapped in the building. That was a great episode. And obviously our favorite episode. Yeah. So they have great ones. It's just... Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Elliot turned into the country star that season.
Oh, that's
yeah. Yes, that was. And Parker was Bjork. That's who she was pretending to be. Good times. So yeah, that was definitely the weakest season. That didn't work. Them trying to do like an entire season long arc with a bad guy. That's just not. You have to have a better engaging villains for that, and it just kind of was annoying.
They were just too cartoon Scooby-Doo villains.
They were smarmy. I don't know. I don't even remember anything outside of the fact they were smarmy and annoying. Like, I don't even know what their story arcs were. They were bad people.
They were leaning really heavy on the mystery and intrigue. And they were, like you said, they were real smarmy. And Leverage has done such a good job of creating these really like complex villains in the past that it felt like they kind of phoned it in a little bit.
They did, which is too bad because the guy who plays Damian is, I cannot say his name. It's like Goran Visnik. Yeah, and I love him as an actor and other things he's done. They didn't really give him anything good here. Yeah. Outside of like be smarmy and evil. The end. So they kind of screwed the pooch on that one.
But yeah, I think that's probably my biggest complaint with the show. Overall, I think everything else worked pretty well. Obviously, we love the found family aspect and all the relationships that are developed between the different team members. I mean, you take any 2 team member and they have a real solid like connection. Obviously, we have like Nate and Sophie, but then we have Sophie and Elliot, and then we have Elliot and Nate, and Parker and Hardison, and Parker and Sophie, and Parker, and like it's just you can take any 2 characters and they have like a real solid connection. They didn't miss out on anyone. They developed them all fully and completely. They all had their own stories and their own personalities, and they all worked together so well. And I think it's really difficult to write that so completely, and they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, because there are a lot of shows where like there will be characters who maybe are in a show for a long time and you realize they've never had a scene together like on their own. But that's not the case here. Like they all have established relationships with each other, and like they often like highlight these two that don't normally work together but are but then after a while it's not, they've always worked with each other, always. Like there's not a moment where you're like, oh, I don't even remember the last time these two have been in the same scene. You're like, no, well, they're always
like,
together.
they're always doing that.
Yeah, it's just a really good show, y'all.
It is. And the actual cons they do in the episodes are, I can't even begin to imagine writing something that nuanced, because there's always like a twist at the end and we're always waiting for it. And
what just happened?
And almost always I was surprised. Like I don't remember, I think maybe a handful of times I was able to actually guess what they were doing, but
yeah, I mean, and even when you do kind of know, it's still well done. Like, even if you're like, okay, I see where this might be going. Although I love when they think they have it down and then they screw up, like the miracle job.
Yeah, when they do too well.
Christopia.
Yeah. Bibletopia.
Bibletopia. And they just did not realize that the mark was going to go lean that far into it.
Yeah, those episodes were always really satifying because it's funny to watch them scramble and like, oh, we did our job too well. Now how do we
did our job too well?
Yeah.
I think one of the things I really like connected to that is when Hardison was trying to become the Nate, the master mind,
and he had that whole overly complex.
And he overplayed it, and he also didn't think about all the angles, and like Nate was kind of watching, but you knew that he was covered, like you knew they were all.
Nate was gonna,
but like you had to see him flounder, which was difficult because you're like, Hardison, I'm sorry. But it was interesting because that was when Nate reveals that he has like 20 plans in any situation, because it's so perfect, because all this time we think about how do they get it right all this time. You're like, no, Nate actually just has like 20 different scenarios and he just reacts depending on what is going on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why he's a great mastermind. But that it's not like it just happens to go well. No, a lot of times it does not go well.
A lot of work and planning goes into, those endings. And can we just take a second to appreciate the gloats in these episodes?
Always.
One of my favorite parts is it's such a trivial little thing, but it's so satisfying when they just
wonderful
get to,
every
like,
time.
when the villain is like getting their comeuppance and they're being like hauled away by police or whatever, and the team's just there.
Just looking at them, like I'm making eye contact.
We got you.
They're just sitting like not in their costumes anymore. Yeah. Just like, it was us.
It was us.
And it's worth it every time. You're like,
Never get tired.
Thanks, bad guys.
Oh my goodness. One of the things on the show is obviously there's two romantic pairings between Nate and Sophie, and Hardison and Parker. Were you a fan of either of them? Both of them? Liked it? Didn't like it?
I love them.
Yeah, I loved both of them.
Yeah, that was a really great thing. What I do like about Sophie and Nate in particular, because I was going to be in on Hardison and Parker no matter what you did. Like I was in on this one. But with Sophie and Nate, it took more time because the two of them have history and they have a lot of distrust, and there was a lot of, and I what I liked about when Sophie decided to go on her pilgrimage, that it was partly because like she was seeing that kind of all of her life was becoming about Nate. Like all of her thoughts, all of her planning was like about Nate, and she wasn't doing anything for herself quite the same. And I think that was really great that they made them such individuals that way, because it was starting to come like will Nate and Sophie get together? And it's like, well, they're people on their own and they have great relationships with everyone. But I think that they worked really hard in selling that ship, and they took their time with it. Like it took 5 seasons for them to get together, and you believed that they were there. They were at the place. Yeah. And that was great, where I was like, yeah, just give me Parker and Hardison immediately now.
Well, and so that's the thing too, is that like even with Parker and Hardison, like that took 3 seasons for them to get together, when we were all on board from like episode 1. We're like, yes, we should these two, let's do it. and they made us wait 3 freaking years.
I know, it's so
But
long.
it makes sense because where Parker was at in the beginning of the show, she wasn't ready for something like that, so she had to
of
get
course
to
not.
good. So I think it speaks to the writers again. Again, I really love the writing team on this show, but like so many shows will just like, oh, fans like this couple, we're gonna throw them together right away because we want ratings. And this show didn't do that. They were like, no, we're gonna make this realistic. We're gonna build this and develop the characters, and when they come together, it's so much more satisfying.
Well, yeah, and they did a really good job with Parker and Hardison because you understand Parker has more difficulty than most, and where they have that thing where she like the pretzels, where it's like they acknowledge on the show. It's not like one of those will they, won't they, because it might have been until that point, like not really, but kind of, but like they acknowledged that she wasn't ready for it, acknowledged that he understood she wasn't ready for it and was waiting for her and was fine with that. Like they just did all of that. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like most ships don't work this way where they're like, and it's just,
that's in particular where like Hardison, understands and takes the time to recognize she's not ready. I can wait. And he didn't like throw a tantrum and make it all about him, which I feel like a lot of male characters would do in TV series. Like they would just get really upset. And he was like, no, I get it. I understand. I will wait for you.
Well, I think the thing for Hardison was he just needed to know it was both ways.
Yeah.
And once he
once
did
he had that confirmation from her,
he was like, okay, great, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like I like any young person. He was like, does she like me? And yeah, she does. She likes you a lot. And but yeah, they really worked hard on that. And what I loved about it was that the relationships and they learned this lesson, I think, from Nate and Sophie, because I liked them, but they pushed a little too hard on them in the start. And I think they learned to like kind of be a little more hands off, like not make it such a major part of the two of them in general. And once they did that, like, 'cause they just got them together, they just hooked up, and then it was kind of settling under the surface, and they just kept living out their lives. But they, I think that they learned from that, like, don't make this the only thing about this character, you know?
Yeah.
And so by the time they got to Parker and Hardison, it wasn't at all, because that's why they were so cute. Like it was there and you acknowledged it and they were together and it was cute, but it wasn't like a huge part of either of them or the parts they played in Com, which I thought was great.
Yes.
And I like secretly low key ship Sophie and Elliot.
Me too.
I do. I can't help it. Like we're talking about ships.
They have such a unique connection, and I think they understand each other in a way that the other team members can't quite get.
I think that there's so much like respect there, and there's connection, and then there's respect, and there's understanding, and I can see how it wouldn't become romantic, because then they might like kind of ruin that aspect of their relationship by making it too much about the actual romance. But the two of them, just as a ship of like hyper competent, intelligent duo who respect each other, like he's not going to cause drama for her.
No.
But she needs the drama. She feeds off the drama. So, but there was a time where like they'd have some scenes and I'm like, yeah, I could see this. I ship it a little bit, but he wouldn't be dramatic enough for her. She wants Nate to be a crazy person so she can fix him.
Yep.
It is what it is.
You
know Sophie well.
I do.
All right. So I know we talked about it a little bit before, but this is kind of like a rambling multi-choice question of stuff. But the end, they knew it was coming, so they planned for it, they wrote for it, so that way we as viewers got to actually have resolution rather than boy, I really hope that they come back next season. Oh, I hate you, TNT, for canceling the series, and I get nothing. But does the ending work? Was 5 seasons enough? Should there have been maybe a spin-off a few years later? Because that's what we're doing nowadays, is getting spin-offs of random shows now, or revivals of shows that are 20 or 30 years old. Just general ending thoughts.
I don't think that they should have. I did not want to spin off. I love the three of them, and I'm sure it would have been fine, but I didn't need it. Like, it was done.
Yeah, and they had sort of mentioned, I read it in an article somewhere that like they set it up so that it could be a final ending with the trio taking over and Nate and Sophie leaving. But had they gotten renewed for another season, they would have found a way to bring Nate and Sophie back, which I feel like wouldn't have been as genuine. So I really don't think another season would have been as great as the other was, and especially after that finale, like it was so good, and there was such a like finality to it that I feel like anything coming in after that just wouldn't. It would have been like the final seasons of Scrubs.
Oh God, no!
I know Chelsea knows.
No,
like we don't even like to mention that it exists because the previous season good solid ending for the series, and then they brought it back for this next season, and everyone was just like, "What are you doing?"
And they did new characters, but had the old character. No, it wasn't even that it was new characters, but kept the old cast. But they made it a teaching hospital, like they had classes and stuff there.
Yeah, it was
so bad.
Bizarre, and I would worry that if Leverage would have come back for another season, it would have ended up in kind of a mess like that. Maybe not quite that bad, but
kind of taken more time. But
I feel like there would have been some disconnect there. So I'm glad it ended where it did. I think 5 seasons is a really respectable run. It gave time to do some really complete storylines without jumping the shark or going into really weird territories.
Well, it had its moments.
It had a few moments, but
yes, yeah.
I think we can all agree.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do. Yeah.
I'm not saying I dislike the episode where we did all the flashbacks, but it was different. And I was like, are you guys getting bored with the show? Like, is that what's happening right now? You're a little bored with it. But no, I agree with you 100%. I think I feel, and I've said this before, I feel all shows should end around that time.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like most shows that I've seen at about 5 seasons, you're like, yeah, I think we're good. Like, I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
Unless there's something like Doctor Who, which like refurbishes itself constantly.
Every couple of years, yeah.
And you can't, not all shows could do that, but like, that is the only exception because you keep changing. Really, they keep changing every 2 or 3 years. So it's like a new show. But yeah, no, this was perfect. It was so well done and executed. And it was, I mean, it's a credit to the show that even though you and I are huge fans, we were like, no, we're okay. We're done.
Yeah, we're good. We're happy with where this is. Like, I was sad, but I knew it was the right thing.
Yeah. I wouldn't want them to come back and then mar that beauty.
Exactly. I wanted to stay the perfection that it is. Like, please don't mess it up.
Outside of season 3.
Outside of season 3.
It was still good.
Yes, like I said, on normal TV scale, it's totally fine and not out of the ordinary. It's just compared to the other 4 seasons, it didn't hold up.
It didn't. It's true. I mean, there's still some good episodes, but yeah, I mean, we keep bringing it back because it's true. This is just how it is. And once you watch the show, those of you listening, if you haven't, bet you $100 when you get there, you'll be like, yeah. Like David did.
Yes.
That's right. And all bets made on this podcast are not binding. Just FYI.
Yes, it is.
Before we start wrapping things up, I do want to give like a special shout out to this show, particularly because Chelsea has been one of my very best friends for a very long time. And it is because of this show that we first met. Yeah.
It is.
Our very first conversation was about Leverage, and we just bonded, and I have an amazing best friend because of it. So
I know it's been 9 years or so because it was 2009. And that was the first thing I ever said to you.
Yeah.
Was I love Leverage too. and a beautiful friendship was made.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Do you have anything else that you want to add in? I'm good with whatever.
Yeah.
If you've got stuff to say further about Leverage, otherwise,
no, I think
we'll wrap this up.
I think we covered it all. Yeah.
Watch the show.
Yes, please. And
even though we spoiled some things,
rewatch it because it's amazing and it still holds up. And I love rewatching it.
I'm gonna rewatch it. It's good. I have to rewatch it now.
It's worth it. Like I rewatched it recently with my fiance. He'd never seen it and he knew it was one of my favorite shows. So we sat down to watch the whole thing start to finish. And it was fun for me, like getting to watch it and seeing all those little nuanced things that I missed the first time around because I was so focused on other things. And if you've already seen the show, watch it with someone who's never seen it because that is so much fun. Watching their faces when like the reveal comes at the end and you know it's coming and they don't, like it's the best.
I'm sad that when I watched it with my friends who hadn't seen it, we didn't get to a point where hearing Sterling's voice would have that reaction. Because they only saw through the first season, so they'd only just met him. And I'm like, oh, I wish we got a little farther so you could hear the voice and go, it's the guy!
All right, so I think we have covered everything for Leverage, 10 years, and hopefully, I know it's not streaming on Netflix now, but hopefully if you're looking for the show, you can find it maybe on Amazon Prime or Hulu, or just go out and buy the DVDs and support the cast and crew, because I don't know if how residuals work, but maybe they get a little bit, and yeah, I hope you enjoy the show if you get to watch it. And thank you to Jachelle and Chelsea for once again coming back and talking about another amazing fandom on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having us. It was
Thank you for having
blast.
us. Yay!
We love the opportunity to talk about Leverage. We do it all the time on our own. So
we do.
Thank you for giving us a platform to reach more people.
Sorry if this is mostly us just laughing at each other because that's how often we talk about this show.
It's true.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.